Are you creatively blocked? Here's how to unblock yourself for good, forever. Thank God. Let's live a life of creative fulfillment, shall we? Let's live a life on the peak energy of our dreams coming to fruition day by day, tapped into the Most High, the Source, and expanding every moment through whispers of revelation coming from within. Here is how to unblock yourself creatively through the power of forgiveness. John Lydon, Johnny Lydon, or Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols has a book, I think it's called Anger is Energy. And that's true. Anger is energy, and you can express angry stuff that can be effective. But ultimately, when I see somebody or somebody tells me they're creatively blocked, the first thing I think to tell them is to forgive everybody, to forgive, because I think the root cause of most creative blocks or of being stuck in procrastination and distraction, the root cause, when you dig way deep down, is unresolved anger. And here's why I believe that's the case. Because anger establishes itself in your ego identity. We have the two operating systems. The spirit, that's where we want to be. The spirit, the infinite, the power of now, presence, God. We want to be in that flow. That's the flow of genius. That's where our genius comes from. And the other one is our ego, which is just thinking, internal chatter, and fear-based stuff, anxiety. It's the birthplace of procrastination. It's the stuck energy, when we are identifying with the smallest side of our nature. And anger firmly roots us in that side. It sort of provokes you to be dramatic. It provokes you to gossip. It provokes you to call a friend and say, I can't believe blah, blah, blah. Or deep down, if we're talking about like the anger for our, family of origin, our mothers and our fathers, that's maybe deeply unconscious, that we just haven't resolved, and we don't even know we're really angry. We don't really know why we're stuck. That tends to be, I think, deep unresolved anger. So the pathway to creative fulfillment and creative freedom is forgiveness. How do we forgive? Well, first of all, it's a decision. We have to decide to forgive, and sort of appeal to higher spiritual forces than our egos to do that. Because the ego holds on to anger because the ego is ultimately an illusion that will want to promote itself as the ultimate reality when it's obviously not. So the ego loves anger. The ego loves conflict. The ego loves drama. The ego loves gossip. The ego loves fear. The ego loves, being creatively stuck, essentially. I mean, not, also the ego likes to feel like it's getting after it and doing stuff too, but it will throw that away in place of anger, fear, resentment, drama, conflict in a heartbeat, because that establishes it as the ultimate reality. So if you want to go beyond the ego into creative fulfillment and into presence, where the ego becomes sort of smaller and smaller, and your ability for genius effort and creative freedom and expansion, you have to come into the spirit. The only way to do that is through the power of forgiveness. So, one, it's a decision. I want to forgive. You have to make forgiveness a work. And the best tool of forgiveness is that I have personally found is the mantra called Ho'oponopono. Maybe it's a prayer mantra, and it goes, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And so anyone or anything you might have a resentment against, it could even be a money block or even create a creative block in and of itself. You could appeal this mantra towards your creative blocks. You could say to them, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. It's this sort of Matrix style, Neo in the Matrix style, the bullets all fall from before they hit him kind of cheat code. It's a spiritual weapon, essentially, in the spirit war. And so, personally speaking, I had enormous amounts of anger come up at certain points of my life. And somehow I found this prayer mantra, the sort of divine nature of the algorithm, I think, gave it to me at one point. And so I would go on long runs in New York City and just have this mantra in my headphones. There's YouTube videos that have like 8-hour versions of it where you can even sleep with it in. So you can just find Ho'oponopono, Ho'oponopono. Pono means to make right. Pono means to make double right. So you're clearing space. Essentially, you're giving yourself space, right, through this. And I think probably for over a year, I would just listen to this mantra all the time. And anyone who I had a lingering resentment against, I would think of them while this mantra was going. And so on a spiritual level, I was sort of cutting the ties, cutting the negative ties. And essentially, you're taking responsibility for everything in your field of consciousness. And you're taking full accountability for the state of your soul. You're not blaming anyone. You're not being a victim. You understand that everyone who's ever done anything to wrong you is dealing with their own principalities within. So it's not. So your anger, if it's directed at a person, is kind of always misaligned because people have energies working through them that are beyond them, right? So it's easy to forgive them on a personal level if you firmly understand that. You say to them, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. It's essentially freeing you from the energy of judgment and condemnation. And freed of judgment and condemnation gives you enormous amounts of space for creative freedom, creative ideas, for being in presence, for being in the here and now, where creativity starts to flow again. So the creative stumbling blocks are rooted in anger, unresolved anger. It's very helpful to understand that and to deal with it on this level. You can think of it this way as well. Anger is essentially hatred. Forgiveness and presence is love. So a much more powerful force than anger, Johnny Rotten, is love. So yes, maybe anger is a certain kind of energy. It could even be creative. There's some fantastic angry punk rock songs. I don't deny this. But I would even say probably those angry punk rock songs come from a soul who is able to be present enough to write them. So you could express angry emotion from a place of love as well, in a way. But anyway, that's kind of a sidetrack or a deviation from the theme of this, because ideally we want to be in presence, we want to be in peace, we want to be just creatively present. And so the only way we can get there is if we have let go of old attachments that are like shackles, like a room that's unorganized or all over the place. So that's it, basically. Ho'oponopono is a incredible mantra. You know, I was relating it to NPD culture, narcissistic personality disorder. Years ago, there was lots of videos on NPD and sort of blaming narcissists for everything in our life and sort of identifying ourselves as the victim. This was very popular at one point. It probably still is. And though, yes, abusive relationships do exist, and you don't want to like keep yourself open for fields of abuse, at the same time, to frame yourself as a victim and look at other people as evil firmly roots you in an atmosphere of judgment and condemnation. So I think, in a way, it's better to empower yourself through practices like Ho'oponopono, where you put the responsibility for everything in your field of consciousness on yourself, and empower yourself to resolve the situations within. You're not waiting for an apology for anyone. You're offering the apology on a spiritual level. You're not necessarily going to that person and saying, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. Hold on, my daughter's yelling at me now. She needs more breakfast. Let me pause this. So, yeah, just to recap, basically, you always hear, don't procrastinate, do good every day, be on top of it, get your stuff together. And it's like, yeah, we all know that. We all want to be that. None of us want to be creatively stuck. None of us want to be caught in a world of procrastination and fear and worry. And it's like, but maybe it's not enough to just tell people not to be that way, because we're vast, we contain multitudes, we're complicated beings. It's helpful to understand why we procrastinate, why we are stuck. And I really do believe one of the biggest reasons for that is unresolved anger. And Ho'oponopono is basically a cheat code to help you appeal to the higher part of your soul to forgive. Because, again, if we're rooted in our egoic mind or, in our thoughts, it really is difficult to forgive from that place, because that place is invested in keeping dramas alive and in keeping anger alive and in keeping conflict alive. So Ho'oponopono is kind of like a decision to appeal to higher spirits to help us out of those booby traps, essentially, and get into the life of full-on creative expansion and expression. So try it. Try Ho'oponopono. There's videos from this guy named Dr. Hugh Lin as well that you should check out. He's one of the sort of giants of Ho'oponopono. He was some kind of psychologist who healed a whole mental facility using Ho'oponopono just by looking over their files and saying this prayer towards their spirit via their case studies. So anyway, that's about it. Check it out. Check out Ho'oponopono. Go on some runs with I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. My daughter's yelling again. I gotta go. Bye. What, baby?